Hello, and thanks for joining us. Today, Chris and I are going to be talking briefly about how to lower the cost of an agile transformation. And we're going to do this by talking about what we used to do and the way we used to think about this, and then move into what we do now and how you can save money in an agile transformation.
Yeah, and
Chris,
let's
before,
let's be frank about this, Scott.
yeah,
It's a lot of money that you can invest in a transformation, and you want that return on investment. So let's get right into it.
yeah, I will say real quick that, I just had a talk with an acquaintance lately, and 10 years worth of transformation, multiple transformations, maybe five, six times attempts at it, millions of dollars spent and no gains. So we want to avoid that. We want to try to make the type of gains that really impact your business. And so that's why we're going to address this today.
All right.
So what we used to do, and Chris and I have been doing this for many, many years and together for many years. And what we used to do was a 2-day workshop for training. And this was at the beginning of the process. And Chris, any comments about that 2 days for the training?
Well, and 2 days of training, and that was for everybody within the scope of the project. So depending on, let's say it was 200 people, 300 people, that's 600 days that you're taking them out of the business. That's a big chunk of change of productivity that you're impacting. And the other thing that we found almost immediately, the retention of the information and the application of the information was too far away from the actual transformation process. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it.
But I think that's a great thought, Chris, because that we used to get great feedback. People loved it, but then they got back to their jobs and were like, what do I do with this?
Yeah,
And that wasn't
exactly.
helpful. So expensive, and it's typically associated with the big bang type of approach, which is a high risk style of agile transformation, or even any kind of a reorganization. That big bang style, really, really difficult to pull off.
Yeah, and one of the items that we get asked often is, okay, you guys are running a transformation. Before we do anything, let's make sure we reorganize. No, we didn't find that worked at all. In fact, that worked against us.
Yeah.
And what we really want to do is actually understand the process that's going on, make sure that we're making the efficient and effective decisions. And if that means reorganizing who reports to who or who takes business direction, so be it. But just building out a new org chart doesn't do anything for your bottom line.
Yep, doesn't do anything for the underlying culture. And wouldn't you say, Chris, that's an awful lot like what we see is like kabuki theater. You're not really doing the real changes when you do that reorganization. And so we look at that as a revolutionary model, big change, lots of training, maybe a reorganization. And again, it makes people feel good because you've done a lot of stuff, but it's very difficult for it to have a lasting effect.
And you know what? You look at the end results of it and all that time, that money, that investment, that training, that's a huge cost that isn't going to improve the value of the deliverables that you apply and put into the marketplace.
So that's why we've come full circle. And what we do now is we definitely do that type of approach that Chris just described, that land and expand. And that's the place where we establish the goals of the transformation. We select the pilot teams. We do a pilot with 1, 2, maybe a group of teams. We do initial discovery work. We gather baseline data so we have something to compare to what we end up with. And then we do very targeted contextual training when they need it. So then they can take that training and then put it right into their work rather than before where there was no context for the actual work and how to apply it.
Yeah, and the way that we do it, oftentimes that discovery, the design, the implementation process with various teams, depending on them being scoped properly, will be up and running inside of a week, 2 at the tops. And that's what you want to do. You want to hit that ground running as quickly as possible and start to build that muscle memory into the organization about the concepts that you're introducing. And, Scott really hit upon a really important point. We train based on what's needed, what the individuals need, what the organization needs, how the culture would react to it. And that's really key so that we're not pushing something down the pipe that isn't wanted or needed or receptive. So
Yep.
any other thoughts on that, Scott?
None on that, but I'll go on to the next. So we're working with teams, as they come up, we're doing the pilots, we're really driving, trying to drive improvements, and then verifying that or validating it with metrics, reporting that upwards. And we're really trying in that pilot process to gain organizational knowledge or learnings about how the organization behaves. And that becomes really critical. In a big bang, you don't experience that kind of learning except that when it's too late. In a pilot process, you're gaining those learnings early and you can apply it to the next step, which is really important.
And one of the things that we discovered early on is that since we do transformations generally as a two-person team, when one person is leading a conversation, the other is listening. They're picking up on those
Great point.
trace elements, that culture, that nuance. It allows us to circle back and drill down deeper into a greater understanding of how things work within the various teams, within the various processes that we're working to improve.
And so what this creates is much more of a viral approach or a pull approach. So we might take a group of teams, maybe, 3, 4 teams, and we work on them and we work on their core processes and transforming them. And what happens is people hear about it, especially if you can create the successes necessary to publicize and to create that pull. And then all of a sudden people line up to say, well, I want to do that too. And so after a while, it's not a matter of having to sell the transformation. It's people keep joining or they want to add to it. And in some cases, you can start with a core piece of work, and then all the supplementary teams, they all start wanting to join. And that's really important.
Well, it's
And
also,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, Scott, I was going to, sorry for stepping on your comment there, but as you're talking, it reminds me sometimes that it's almost like a stealth project
Yep.
where people will say to us 2, 3, 4 months in, going, geez, I'm not quite sure, can you guys tell me the benefit of what you've been doing? And really what that is a really good indication that they've started to institutionalize and make firm that the process changes, the execution changes are becoming second nature. So it's almost like they don't remember what it was like before. So their steady state is always evolving with constant iteration and improvement.
And let
And
me
that,
say, Chris, too, the funny thing about transformations like this is that they may call you and they go, I'm not sure what you do, but I've heard about it and I'm interested and I want to try it.
yeah,
And
we get those calls where somebody told me I should talk to you guys, but I'm
yeah,
not sure why. And that's where we just go back in and you know, discuss, have a chat, what are your business issues, and go from there.
so one of the things that come out of this process and this new way of doing transformations is that you can do a transformation or the organization can start to do transformations on their own, meaning Chris and I don't have to be there. Once you start to train an organization, you can make it so it continues to organically evolve across the organization. And this is quite a huge cost savings as opposed to a big bang where you've got just this huge army of agile coaches who are tough to wrangle
Yeah.
and trying to do a transformation. So there's just a huge amount of cost savings you can pick up in this organic nature of the growth and change across the organization.
Yeah, and your company, your enterprise has great people. You hired great people. They're doing wonderful things before we showed up, and they'll be doing wonderful things after we leave. But we're just giving them one more tool into their toolkit
Yep.
and augmenting, giving them the opportunity to really take it upon themselves and own the actual process and seeing what benefit comes from that. And we haven't talked about cost for a few minutes, but all of this stuff is really about doing the most important thing first. And that's what we focus on. We used to think, harkening back, doing the, we got to train everybody. No, we were halfway through that, and we decided this just wasn't a good use of anyone's time, and really time is money, and that's what we're trying to drive across.
And if you can't tell, Chris and I do transformations this way because it works. It's just, we've tried the other way. It's just very painful. And this organic viral nature of organizational transformations, it just works when you do it small and evolutionary.
All right.
Well, if you agree or disagree with this video, please feel free to comment. And if there's a subject that you'd like Chris and I to discuss, please feel free to put that in comments wherever you're reading this. If you'd like to, or if you're an executive at a company and considering a transformation or an organizational optimization, please feel free to schedule a free guidance session with us, and we'll put that link in the description in this video. So until then, take care.
Take care, everyone.